When a millionaire discovered his son's incredible bond with the maid, his life changed forever. The summer sun beat fiercely over the Carter mansion, casting long shadows across the marble floors that sparkled with the light of wealth. James Carter, a self-made millionaire, pinned his dreams to the wall of success he had built. Yet, for all the opulence surrounding him, the trophies of business accolades, the sleek sports cars, and the sprawling backyard pool, a hollow emptiness throbbed in his chest. His eyes drifted, finding their way to a solitary figure, the teenager who once idolized him. Ethan, his son, immersed in the chaos of adolescence, seemed a world apart, slowly slipping away into an existence James barely understood. When James glanced into the living room one afternoon, he was hit with a sight so raw it twisted his gut. Ethan was sprawled on the couch, his laughter ringing through the air as he shared stories with Maria, the maid. She was an immigrant, working 2 jobs to keep food on the table for her daughter. The warmth she carried, a stark contrast to James's cool ambition, spilled over into the room and created an atmosphere of genuine connection. The light in Ethan's eyes, that glow of authenticity, was something James craved but couldn't offer. The old man felt a jealousy stifling his chest. Here was his boy finding solace in the arms of someone far removed from his privileged existence, and it stirred in him a churning mix of insecurity and hope. "Stay in your lane," James's voice burst out, authoritative and sharp, cutting through their moment. Maria looked taken aback, stunned into silence. "You're here to clean, not to make friends." He saw Ethan's eyes widen with disappointment, and for a second, he felt a flicker of shame. The argument flared, a battle between a protective father and an unspoken understanding. Why was this connection forming? What did Maria have that he, with all his success, lacked? With the air thick with tension, Maria's unwavering spirit shone. "Mr. Carter, I am simply sharing stories of my life," she said softly, her voice steady. "Ethan is not just your son. He is a young man searching for meaning in the world. That takes humility, not just wealth." James felt the weight of those words hitting him, burning into his soul. He had built his empire block by block, but now it all seemed pointless if it meant losing his son in the process. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the summer days rolled on, he could see Ethan growing increasingly close to Maria. Their conversations flowered, bubbling over with laughter and shared lessons of resilience. This growing connection sparked an urgency in Ethan, one fueled by compassion. Meanwhile, James wrestled with his own insecurities, the clash of hard work versus the simple power of human kindness ringing loud in his ears. Could he still be a father when his heart felt heavy with pride and misunderstanding? The turning point struck him hard when he witnessed Maria face prejudice from a neighbor, horribly unfair treatment simply because of her background. Fury ignited within him, and he felt the strain of ambition fade in the face of injustice. In that moment, as he leaned closer to understanding what it meant to stand up for someone, he recognized that the true cost of his success had been pushing away the very people he loved. Standing at this crossroad, James clenched his fists. Would he be brave enough to close the divide years in the making? Could he bridge the gap between ambition and love before it tore them apart forever? With turmoil churning in his heart, he wondered, was he too late to reach his son? Or was hope just a heartbeat away? Days turned into weeks, and the longer James let the silence stretch, the more he felt like a ghost wandering his own home. He watched Ethan and Maria from a distance, each moment of laughter echoing like a distant memory he could barely grasp. James knew he had to act, but the fear of pushing his son away kept him rooted to the spot. The idea of taking the first step was terrifying. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky with hues of orange, he found himself swimming in a sea of regret. He poured a drink and paced the patio, the sound of splashing water from the pool underscoring his restless thoughts. He remembered his own father, a man of few words who valued stoicism over tenderness. No warmth, no encouragement, just the expectation to succeed. Was he doomed to repeat that cycle? "Dad, you coming in?" Ethan's voice broke through the thick silence. James turned to see his son standing at the edge of the patio, the fading light outlining his youthful features. There was an eagerness in Ethan's eyes, a flicker of hope that his father might join him. He forced a smile, momentarily forgetting the burden weighing him down. "Yeah, just thinking, it's a nice evening. I was just talking to Maria about starting a community garden," Ethan said, enthusiasm spilling over. "You should see her ideas. She knows so much about plants and what grows best around here." A strange warmth filled James's heart at the mention of Maria, their shared bond weaving its way into the fabric of his own, already stretched thin. "Really? That sounds interesting." But as he spoke, the gnawing jealousy returned. Why did Ethan gravitate towards Maria's ideas while dismissing his? Ethan smiled, and for a moment, it felt like everything might shift. James took a deep breath, wanting to connect, to show understanding. "Sounds like you two get along well. You ever think about how different your worlds are?" Ethan frowned, his youthful enthusiasm flickering. "That's just it, Dad. She's teaching me there's more to life than just success. It's about people, connections, making a difference." James's heart sank. How had he failed his own son so completely? Later that night, as James lay awake, he thought about what Ethan had said. The weight of his isolation pressed down on him like a heavy blanket. The divide between him and his son felt insurmountable. Yet, through the haze of uncertainty, a small spark of courage ignited. Maybe it was time to step outside the fortress of wealth he'd built and value the connections that truly mattered. The following morning, James woke up earlier than usual. He brewed a pot of coffee and stared out over the sprawling lawn, feeling a tentative determination settle in his chest. As he enjoyed the warm cup, he decided to make his move to reach out to Maria, to start a dialogue and explore this new understanding Ethan had found. He found her tending to the garden, her hands in the dirt, planting seeds of life rather than just maintaining the lawn. She looked up, startled to see him. "Mr. Carter, is everything all right?" James stood taller, the taste of resolve filling his mouth. "I'd like to talk about Ethan and the community garden." A spark of surprise lit her eyes, and for the first time, he saw curiosity bloom instead of hesitation. "Sure, we can talk," she replied, her voice steady. As their conversation unfolded, James felt the walls he had built begin to crumble. The lessons from a woman he initially considered just the maid took him by surprise, and with each shared thought, he could sense the breadth of new possibilities stretching ahead of them. But as they spoke, shadows of doubt still loomed. Would this bridge the gap he felt widening between him and Ethan? Would Maria's influence ultimately make him better? Or was he inviting more complications into their lives? With each question, a knot twisted in his stomach, keeping him captive in uncertainty. Would he be able to transform in the eyes of his son? Or was it too late to change? The sun shone brighter that day, casting a golden hue over the garden. James felt lighter, buoyed by the conversation with Maria. He had stumbled upon a hidden treasure trove of wisdom, and for the first time, he felt ready to peel back the layers of distance between himself and Ethan. They left the garden, and James thought about how the earth they had just turned had the potential to sow strength, connection, and renewal. He decided to seize the moment. "Ethan, could you come out here for a minute?" he called. The urgency in his voice surprised even him. Ethan appeared moments later. A curious expression lit his face. "Hey Dad, what's up?" James swallowed hard. "I spent some time talking with Maria today. We discussed the community garden." Ethan's eyes widened with anticipation. "Yeah? What did she say?" "She talked about how it could be more than just growing vegetables. It could be a place where people gather, share ideas, and connect. And maybe we could do that together." Ethan's face broke into a broad smile, but there was a flicker of caution in his eyes. "You mean you want to help? Like, Actually get your hands dirty? Yes, James replied, the word tumbling out of his mouth with unexpected zeal. I want to help. I want to understand what matters to you. Ethan studied him for a long moment. A storm of emotions surged behind his eyes, hope and skepticism colliding. Really? You mean it? Absolutely, James said, feeling a surge of confidence. He didn't want empty promises or lofty intentions anymore. He wanted real action, a shift in their relationship, one that had the potential to heal the years of silent distance. Ethan stepped closer. You know, Maria's been talking about a kickoff meeting with other families in the neighborhood to get ideas for the garden. It's this weekend. You could come, Dad. Everyone's going to be there. A wave of inexplicable anxiety washed over James. This weekend? He echoed, his heart racing. The thought of communal gatherings where laughter mingled with uncertainty felt daunting. Yet, a quiet, determined voice whispered, "This is your chance." "Yeah, I'll be there." His voice made the commitment feel real. "I want to support you and Maria." Ethan grinned, a bright light breaking through the clouds that had hung over their relationship. That would be so amazing. I mean, people would love it if the owner of the house came to something like this. James couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at the thought of being welcomed not just as a father but also as a community member. The division between him and Ethan began to feel less like a brick wall and more like an unmarked path, one they could walk together. As the short breaths of evening set in, and the stars began to frolic in the sky, James realized something profound. He was on the cusp of transformation not only as a father but as a person eager to foster connection beyond his known world. Later that evening, as he lay in bed, a sense of hope surged within him, a feeling he had almost forgotten. But doubt crept back in. Would he really be accepted by the community? What if they saw him only as the wealthy man, not the father trying to change? And then, in the quiet, he remembered what Ethan had said about making a difference. He had to do this, not just for Ethan but for himself. But just before sleep took him, one last thought haunted him. Was he truly ready to unearth the roots of his vulnerability? Or was the fear of judgment too terrifying to face? As uncertainty cocooned him, a new idea began to take shape. Perhaps the answers he sought would also reveal a profound truth about himself. Would he risk it all to find out? Saturday arrived with the sun peeking through the curtains, bright and hopeful. James stared at the ceiling for a long moment, his thoughts racing. The garden meeting had been on his mind all week, a blend of excitement and fear knotting his stomach. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, fiddling with a small notebook filled with sketches and ideas for the garden. "Dad, are you excited?" he asked, glancing up with a sparkle in his eyes. "Excited? Yeah, I guess so," James replied, trying to match Ethan's enthusiasm but feeling it falter. It was easier to say he was excited than to feel it. "Remember, it's just us working on something cool together," Ethan continued, bouncing in his chair. "The neighbors are gonna love your ideas." James nodded, forcing a smile. The thought of mingling with the neighbors, speaking ideas aloud, made his heart race. What if they saw through him? What if they only saw the money instead of the man trying to build connections? "Let us get going," then he said, clenching his jaw. The decision was made. He would face this head-on. As they arrived at the garden, a handful of families were already gathered, chatting and laughing beneath a flowering tree. James felt an unfamiliar sensation as he stepped onto the familiar ground, nervousness tinged with the thrill of possibility. He noticed Maria setting up folding chairs, her smile warming the atmosphere like the sun overhead. "James, I'm so glad you could make it." Maria beamed, her enthusiasm cutting through his apprehension. "Thanks for having me, Maria," he managed, his voice steadier than he felt. Still, doubt whispered in the back of his mind. Soon enough, Ethan rushed into the crowd, disappearing into a huddle of children, all of them buzzing with ideas and laughter. James felt a pang, a bittersweet reminder of how many moments he had missed in Ethan's life. Determined not to let it consume him, he began to ease into conversation with the adults. "James, right?" A voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see a woman with kind eyes approaching. "I'm Judy. Ethan talks about you all the time." "He does?" The surprise slipped out before he could stop it. Those words struck a chord deep within his heart. She laughed softly. "Oh yeah. He's excited about the garden and wants to help make it special." Judy gestured toward the gathering. "We all want this garden to be a community space, something we can share together." The simple sincerity in her words caught him off guard. Was this the together that Ethan had been talking about? James swelled with fresh determination. "I want to help." The words were out before he could reconsider. "I'd love to be part of this." "Wonderful. We need people who are willing. Your insights will definitely add a different perspective. Let us brainstorm some ideas." As Judy led him towards the group, James felt a shift. The weight of isolation he carried for so long started to lift. Surrounded by funny chatter and bursts of laughter, he began to feel that he truly mattered. Over the course of the day, James shared ideas about plants and vegetables. But there was more. He shared laughter and stories. For the first time, he felt like part of something bigger. He watched Ethan interact and felt pride swell within him. This was the bond they had both desperately needed. As evening approached, and a warm breeze rustled leaves overhead, James caught Ethan's eye and smiled. The boy grinned back, a sparkle of hope lighting his expression. Amidst the gathering, everything felt alive. Friendships blooming alongside the seeds they were planting. But just as James felt he was making headway, a group of parents approached him, their faces unsure. "Can we talk to you?" one of them asked, nervousness in her voice. James's heart skipped a beat. Were they going to question his intentions? Doubts crept in again, wrapping around him like a choking vine. "Of course," he said, bracing for the worst. As they drew nearer, he wondered, would this be the moment that defined his new path? Would he be able to push through the fear and prove he belonged? James felt the tension coil tightly in his chest as the group of parents drew closer. They exchanged glances, their whispered conversations fading as they looked directly at him. He could almost feel the weight of their scrutiny, amplifying the doubt that lurked at the edges of his mind. We wanted to ask you about your ideas," the woman who had spoken earlier said, her voice steady despite the apprehension in her eyes. "Some of us were wondering, well, we have noticed you've been involved with the garden and we want to know more." His pulse quickened. Was this a subtle inquiry into his life, his intentions? Suddenly, the laughter of children faded, and the warm sun felt cooler, a breeze teasing at the nape of his neck as he mentally scrambled for the right words to say. "Sure, I am excited about our community garden," he stammered, feeling more vulnerable than ever. "I think it could bring us all together, create some good memories." The parents looked at one another, their expressions shifting. There was a cautious curiosity, a flicker of hope dancing in their eyes. "I think that's great," said another parent, a man in a red baseball cap. "We just want to make sure everyone feels welcome. This project isn't about showing who's got the best ideas or the biggest yard, you know? It's about sharing together." James felt a jolt, the self-doubt simmering beneath the surface. "That's exactly what I want, too," he replied, the sincerity surprising even himself. "I want my son to experience community in a way I missed when I was growing up." The woman who first spoken nodded, her expression softening. "We all want the same for our kids." Her words hung in the air, and a warmth began to bloom slowly, tentatively. The fear started to slip away. As the conversation flowed, James found himself sharing stories about his childhood, the countless hours spent in a neighbor's garden, the laughter of friends he lost touch with over the years, and how much he regretted missing out on Ethan's life. Each confession pulled him deeper into the fabric of the gathering, allowing others to mirror his vulnerability. Just as he felt a kinship start to blossom amongst them, a joyful shout from across the field interrupted. Ethan, deeply engrossed in conversation with a group of kids, suddenly raised his arms high, holding up a colorful handmade sign. "Look, everyone. We decided we want to name the garden Ethan's Garden of Dreams." Laughter erupted, and applause broke out among the adults as they looked at James, amusement and warmth shining in their eyes. James felt a rush of pride, not just for Ethan, but the recognition of their efforts as a family and newfound openness. "Now that is a great idea," James exclaimed, grinning wide, the connection wrapping around him like a comforting blanket. What a fantastic way to bring dreams to life. As the sun started to dip below the horizon, the laughter of children blended with the hopeful murmurs of the adults. James felt a burgeoning sense of relief. The exhaustion of old doubts swept away in a tide of growing belonging. But just as the warmth of acceptance began to settle in, a commotion erupted on the fringes of the garden. A man in an expensive suit strode towards them, commanding the attention of the crowd. James's heart dropped. This man was familiar, known for his high-profile disputes and connections to wealthy owners in the area. What could he want? The whisper sigh of concern rippled through the gathering. In that moment, James felt uncertainty creep in once more. Was this man a threat to the fragile connection he was building with the community? "Stay here, Ethan," James whispered under his breath, sensing that this encounter could change everything. Would this be the confrontation that put all his hard work at risk? James took a tentative step forward as the man closed the distance, his tailored suit gleaming in the fading sunlight. The warmth of the moment felt distant now, overshadowed by an impending storm. The laughter of children rolled away like waves retreating from the shore, and a tight knot formed in his throat. "Mr. Blake," the suited man began, an edge of authority lacing his voice, "I believe we need to talk about this little garden project of yours." Eyes turned. The crowd's murmured suspicions sliced through the air, suspending the light-hearted atmosphere in a heavy silence. James clenched his fists, feeling both anger and fear fight for prominence within him. Ethan was still unaware of the tension building, as he excitedly showed his friends the brightly colored sign. "Why, what's wrong with it?" James asked, trying to keep his tone steady, attempting to project confidence despite the unease surrounding him. The man smirked, adjusting his cufflinks as if he owned not only the land but the very air they breathed. "You should know it's my land you're planting this garden on. I'm not interested in community nonsense. This is a business venture and I'd rather not see it disrupted." Gasps echoed gently from the parents. James could feel the walls closing in, their support teetering just out of reach. The man's words were clear, filled with an authority that ignited a fire in James's belly. "So what, you're going to bulldoze it?" he replied, his voice steely. "Is that what you want? To crush something that means so much to everyone?" "Crush? No," the man replied, his smile etched with smug superiority. "But I can certainly influence what happens on my property. I'm not opposed to development, but I don't want a glorified playground on my land." James felt the weight of those words, like an anchor pulling him down. Everything he had hoped to build, connections, memories, a sense of belonging, now dangled in the balance. He glanced back at Ethan, who was now laughing, blissfully unaware. With a deep breath, James stepped closer to meet the man's gaze. The challenge was there. It hung in the air between them. "You're wrong if you think this is just a playground for kids. This garden is about community spirit, about dreams, about giving kids an opportunity to grow and learn." The man narrowed his eyes. "Listen, James, this isn't a charity operation. It's not about them. It's about what I can do, and I assure you, it's bigger than you or your little garden." James felt a wave of determination wash over him, fierce and unyielding. "You may have more money behind you, but you don't have the strength of this community. You don't understand what we are building here." The clash of wills was palpable, tension crackling like electricity in the air. And then he heard a soft voice at his side, one that broke through the protective bubble he had formed. "Daddy, is everything okay?" Ethan's innocent question pierced straight through to James's heart. The crowd turned their attention to Ethan, and for a moment, the barrier of uncertainty fell away. James knelt down to his son's level, the slight weight of pride filling him. "I'm handling it, buddy. Just a grown-up conversation." As he spoke, the other parents began to step forward, positioning themselves beside James. There was solidarity in their stance, a silent agreement that this garden was worth fighting for. "We're all in this together," the woman from the group stated firmly. "You can't just waltz in here and try to dismantle what we've started. Children need this garden." The man's expression soured as he assessed the gathering crowd, Once solitary, now united, emboldened. James saw the flicker of irritation in his eyes. Fine. But this isn't over, he snapped, turning on his heel, his suit trailing behind him like a dark shadow. As he left, James felt the collective sigh of relief wash over them. But the uncertainty lingered. The garden stood as a fragile dream, one threatened by the very real power of wealth. Ethan tugged at James's sleeve, looking up with worry etched on his young face. Are we still going to have the garden, Daddy? James swallowed hard, forcing a reassuring smile. Yes, we will. But it's going to be more than just a garden. It's our chance to show we can make a difference. With hearts pounding and hopes uncertain, they stood together, eyes fixed on the horizon. James realized it wasn't just about the garden anymore. It was about standing firm in the face of doubt and holding onto their dreams. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Next, he thought, glancing around at the community, we'll need a plan. What would that plan look like while facing down a force like that? The sun dipped lower, basking the community in a warm glow that felt almost comforting. Yet James could sense the tension still crackling in the air. He gathered the parents around him, their faces a mixture of hope and concern. Listen, everyone. We can't let this bitter man bully us into abandoning what we've started. This garden isn't just a plot of land. It's a symbol of our togetherness, he said, voice steady but passionate. But we need to be strategic. We can't fight power with emotion alone. Nods of agreement rippled through the group. He could see the determination reflecting in their eyes, mimicking the spark he felt within himself. Sally, the woman who had spoken up earlier, stepped forward, her brow furrowed in thought. What if we hold a community meeting? We can invite everyone, parents, kids, even the mayor. If we stand united, we can show him that we're not just a nuisance to his plans, she suggested, her voice filled with conviction. That's a great start, Sally, James replied, catching a glimmer of hope in the suggestions forming around him. But we also need to research that land. There must be local regulations about green spaces and community projects. We can challenge him legally if we have to. Ethan, still clinging to James's sleeve, tugged a little harder. Dad, does that mean more talking? Can we plant stuff soon? His innocent question broke through the tension, causing a ripple of laughter among the parents. We'll plant, buddy. But first, we'll plant seeds of change. James responded, kneeling down so their eyes were level. Just like we're making this garden grow, we need to grow our strength as a community. As they discussed more ideas, an electric energy filled the air. People shared stories about their own childhoods, their families, and what the garden would mean to their kids. The conversation spiraled from planting schedules to fundraising, laughter interspersing their serious talks. Later, as the meeting wrapped up, James felt the thrill of hope mingled with challenge. The community was galvanizing, and together they would forge a path forward. Ethan took James's hand. Can we pick flowers, Daddy? The ones that smell good? His bright eyes sparkled with innocence. Absolutely, we'll fill the garden with the prettiest flowers. Just wait until you see what we plan for it, Ethan. But as they walked home, the sunset painting the sky a hopeful orange, James's mind drifted back to the man in the suit. Anger bubbled anew at the thought of someone willing to destroy a place filled with love and laughter for profit. How could someone like him even understand? His heart ached, longing for a way to bridge the divide between aspirations and realities. As they reached home, the weight of the challenge settled heavily on James's shoulders. Later that night, he reluctantly sought the quiet sanctuary of his own garden. It was small but bursting with life. As he stepped outside, the moon hung high, illuminating a path of light. He imagined the garden ahead, a space where children's stories were woven among flowers, laughter replaced despair, and dreams took root. But just as the peace wrapped around him, his phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen, breaking into his contemplations. Tomorrow, we need to meet again. I've spoken with some others. It's time we take action. James's heart raced. What were they planning? Another way to confront the man in the suit. Pushing aside his thoughts, he took a breath. They were on the brink of something powerful. Fear mingled with excitement, the kind of emotion that could drive them forward, ignite a vision, or tear them apart. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself, determination swelling in his chest. Nothing could stop them now. Little did he know, that message would set them on a course neither he nor Ethan could have ever anticipated. What awaited them would test every bond they had formed thus far. Would their fragile alliance hold? Would the love they were building together be enough against the looming force of wealth and authority? The following morning, a sense of purpose thrummed through the community. James awoke before dawn, unable to shake the urgency of the message from the night before. He brewed coffee, the robust aroma filling the air, fueling his determination. Ethan, still sleepily rubbing his eyes, wandered into the kitchen. "Daddy, can we go see our garden today?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with hope. James knelt, looking into his son's eager face. "We will, buddy. But first we've got to meet with the others. There's a lot to discuss." Ethan pouted slightly but then nodded, reassured by his father's enthusiasm. After a quick breakfast, they left the house, hand in hand, as the sun peeked over the horizon, spilling light onto the world. When they arrived at the community center, a palpable energy filled the room. Parents and children buzzed with anticipation. James stepped up to the front, his heart racing. "It's great to see everyone here," he said, his voice ringing through the chatter. "Today we stand at a crossroads. The future of our garden is in our hands, and it's time we take action." As he spoke, faces brightened, and a ripple of agreement echoed in the crowd. Sally and several others began passing out flyers detailing the upcoming community meeting. "We need a show of strength," Sally declared as she secured volunteers for tasks. "Everyone must bring their families. The mayor needs to see how much this garden means to us." James's chest swelled with pride. The sight of children eagerly signing up to help felt like a breath of fresh air. They were doing this together, not just for themselves but for every family that called the community home. As plans solidified, the once fearful air transformed into a roaring commitment for change. Conversations about how to present their case filled the room. James felt a mix of urgency and excitement swell within him. This wasn't just about the garden anymore. It was about their future and the legacy they wanted to leave behind. But then, amidst the passionate discussions, an elderly woman stood slowly, her voice trembling but clear. "My husband and I fought to keep this community together when we lost the school. We need to fight for this garden, too." Her words hit like a wave washing over the crowd. Memories of battles fought, tears shed, and victories won resonated deeply among those gathered. James scanned the room, seeing tears sparkle in the eyes of parents who shared her grief. The stakes felt suddenly higher. This garden represented hope, a continuation of the past, a sanctuary for the future. He knew the man in the suit wouldn't understand their resolve. As they wrapped up discussions, James couldn't help but notice the unfamiliar tension creeping back, even as excitement surged. What if they succeeded? What if their alliance crumbled under pressure? It dawned on him. Every step they took enclosed them further in the struggle. Amidst the energy, James's phone chimed again, the message sending a shiver of dread through him. "We need to rethink our approach. There are important players involved." Gathering his thoughts, James turned to the group, excitement clashing with anxiety. "Let us meet again tomorrow, same time," he said, his voice firm. "Bring your stories, your ideas. Together we'll show them how important this is." As they dispersed, fevered whispers fluttered among the crowd, each sharing their hopes and fears about the upcoming meeting. James felt Ethan's small hand slip into his. "Daddy, are we going to win?" James paused, glancing down. The weight of his son's innocence filled him with warmth and dread. "We fight for what's right, buddy. That's all we can do." As night fell and families returned home, one question hung in the air. Could their passion and unity withstand the powerful force that threatened their dreams? The eve of the impending showdown loomed ahead, heavy with uncertainty and anticipation. What would they discover when they faced the man in the suit again? This time with their stories and dreams laid bare. The next day dawned with a sense of urgency that crackled in the air. James woke up before the sun had even considered showing its face. His mind was racing with thoughts, ideas swirling like leaves caught in a whirlwind. He pulled on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, ideating the best way to tackle the meeting that loomed ahead. As he poured himself a cup of coffee, Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, hair tousled, and eyes still heavy with sleep. "Morning, Daddy. Today's the big day, right?" His excitement made James smile, even as his heart pounded with anxiety. "Yeah, it is, buddy. Today we go fight for our garden," James replied, trying to inject confidence into his words. Ethan's face lit up, and despite the weight on James' shoulders, he felt a glimmer of hope for their community. They headed back to the center, and it was already buzzing with energy. People gathered in small clusters, animatedly talking about their experiences with the garden. James couldn't help but feel the warmth of camaraderie wrapping around him as he entered the room, his son at his side. "Hey, everyone," James called out. The room quieted, eyes turning toward him. "We've been working hard. Let's make sure we're united today. What we share here can't just be words. It's our passion, memories, and dreams." With a loud cheer, the crowd erupted, echoing his sentiments. As James looked around, he saw parents, grandparents, and children, all fueled by a spirit of determination. He felt something shift deep within him, a connection to the voice of every person present. Sally stepped forward, her clipboard in hand. "Remember, we're not just asking for a garden. We're asking for a place our children can play, learn, and grow. It's about preserving our community." Her eyes sparkled with fierce conviction, and the crowd erupted with approval. Yet, as excitement swirled, the specter of doubt crept back. What if their efforts fell short? What if the man in the suit dismissed them, mocking their passion like he had before? James could feel the uncertainty hanging thick in the air, punctuated by the occasional nervous laugh or shifting feet. As the time to leave for the meeting approached, James gathered his son close. "Ethan, are you ready?" The little boy nodded, clutching a worn-out stuffed animal, a comfort in the sea of unknowns. "Can I tell the story about the garden? I want them to know how special it is." Ethan's innocent confidence cut through the tension and stirred something deep in James. "Absolutely, buddy. Your voice matters," he affirmed. The group made their way to the city hall, their spirits lifted. As they neared the entrance, James caught sight of the man in the suit, his expression unreadable beneath his polished exterior. The sight triggered a knot in his stomach, but he pressed forward. Inside, the room was filled to the brim with other community members and officials. It felt daunting, almost like they were entering a battlefield. James knew this was their moment to shine, to lay bare the heartbeat of their community. He took a deep breath as he eyed Ethan, who was now whispering to other kids, animatedly sharing thoughts about his beloved garden. He felt a wave of love and pride. "If we show them our hearts, maybe they'll understand," he thought, steeling himself for what lay ahead. As the meeting began, James could see the faces of friends and neighbors, all ready to share their stories. Each voice that rose in passion strengthened his resolve. Their words danced through the room, painting a vivid picture that was hard to ignore. But just as momentum surged, the man in the suit leaned in, raising his hand. "I have some concerns," he began, his tone perfectly polished but laced with an undercurrent of dismissal. James's stomach dropped. He could feel the tension rising again. Would they be able to stand their ground? Could they convince him, or was this just the beginning of a battle that might leave them broken? James looked down at Ethan, who was now watching with wide eyes, filled with trust. In that moment, he realized what they were fighting for was not just a garden, it was hope. As the murmurs of doubt swirled around him, James took a step forward, ready to speak. The stakes had never felt higher. But would his voice be strong enough to be heard above the doubt that shadowed them all? James took a deep breath, allowing the hum of the crowd to spin itself into a symphony of courage within him. As he stood to face the council, glancing at the faces friends, neighbors, allies all staring back with hope, He felt a surge of strength he didn't know he possessed. I believe what we've built mirrors everything that makes a community special, James began, his words flowing with an unexpected urgency. This garden is more than just a patch of soil. It's a home for dreams, laughter, and lifelong connections. It symbolizes unity, resilience, and the way we, as a community, stand strong together through challenges. His voice quaked slightly but grew steady as he continued. Ethan, my son, has shown me that love and relationships hold more power than any amount of wealth. He is excited, full of hope for what this garden can be, not just a place to grow plants, but a sanctuary where kids can learn and play freely. That's something you can't assign a dollar value to. The room remained silent, tension pausing in the air. He could see the mayor, eyebrows raised, and others shifting in their seats, a flicker of understanding igniting in their eyes. I know I'm not just a businessman in a suit, but a father who recognizes he was distant and short-sighted about what mattered. We need this garden to pave paths for the little ones, a refuge for families, and a testament to our commitment to connection. From the back, someone shouted, "We stand with you, James." A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd, rekindling the embers of solidarity that had ignited earlier. James felt Ethan's small hand squeeze his, grounding him as he turned to face the man who had once seemed so intimidating, now nothing more than a threatening shadow. "Mr. Carter, I appreciate the sentiment," the man said, but James could hear the flicker of reluctance and perhaps a hint of respect in his tone. "However, there are regulations to consider and profits to protect." Or, James interjected, "there's a chance to make a profound difference for the people you are meant to serve, your community. These children represent the future, and inside each of them lies potential that money can't measure. Investing in connections is the greatest return." With each word, he fought against the invisible bars of privilege surrounding the man in the suit. As more of the crowd began to rise in support, sharing their own journey on how the garden had touched their lives, the man's demeanor shifted, his smile faltered, and his stance grew less rigid. Ethan took a step forward, bold in his innocence. "Mr. Suitman," he said, "I just want to grow tomatoes. They taste better when you pick them fresh. My friends want to learn about how plants grow, and they can help too." His eyes sparkled with childlike wildness that struck at the very heart of the matter. "Tomatoes?" The man's expression faltered, surprised at the clarity of the boy's passion. Even the room's tension softened, laughter bubbling around. "Yes," Ethan pressed on, "and flowers. My dad says every garden should have flowers. We want to have fun and learn at the same time." In that fleeting moment, James witnessed the transformation. The weariness dissipated from faces, and the light of understanding embraced the room. They were all fighting for the same vision. Feeling the swell of hope around him, James laid out their plan, detailing where the community would head next. Together, they would gather numbers, ideas, and signatures, generating a petition to show their determination. But more importantly, they would create a community where everyone shared ownership and responsibility, not just for a garden, but for the love that would grow from it. As the meeting neared an end, the man held up his hands in defeat, though there was a new respect in his eyes. "Perhaps we can consider an alternative to outright dismissal. A community effort could bear fruit in more ways than one." In the wake of their stand, it felt like the blooming garden was already beginning to take shape, not just outside but within the walls of this room. The words mingled between parents, children, and the officials like vivid colors on a canvas, weaving a story of resilience. After the meeting, James stepped outside with Ethan beside him. For the first time in ages, the air felt fresh and like possibility. "You did it, Dad. We're going to have our garden," Ethan exclaimed, bouncing on his heels. The laughter and voice of community washed over James, bringing him to a moment of realization. "No, buddy, we did it. Together." That evening, as they walked home hand in hand, laughter and lightness enveloped them. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, cascading waves of orange and purple across the sky. In that moment, James felt proud of the man he was becoming, the father he was striving to be. Embracing connection over wealth had finally become his truth, and this would define not just their garden, but also the legacy they would build together. As they entered their home, James's heart swelled with gratitude. What began as a connection with the maid had blossomed into a bond that brought his family back together. With hope now grounded in reality, he looked to the future, anchored firmly by a community he could call family. As the stars peeked through the evening sky, he couldn't help but think. This was just the beginning, and with that realization settled deep in his heart, he smiled, knowing that love and connection could change everything. Now, this is where you come in. You need to subscribe now to not miss these exclusive stories. Hit that thumbs up, leave a like, and feed that algorithm so more people can experience this transformation. Don't you dare wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring journey. Join our story, together we rise.